Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are changing the way that business happens. My name is Tyler Kelly, one of the co-hosts of the show, and this week we're nearing the end of our top 20 of all time countdown. Starting off with number 5, we have Freddie CD. He's the CEO, founder of Chargello. If you've ever been in a restaurant in Miami and you see these flat devices where you can plug in your phone and charge, that's what he does. And in this clip, he shares what it takes to develop a business from an idea and what it means to be an entrepreneur. You're gonna love it. Check out this clip.
What should people expect if they're thinking of starting a business?
Expect to need to pivot. Expect that your plan is not going to go as planned. Expect, I like to say, you get punched in the face and, get back up. That's really the key. Depending on what you're creating as an entrepreneur, you need to make sure that what your KPIs are might not match with what other people are thinking. But as long as you can measure what you want and you think that you're successful in what you're doing, keep pushing forward. And then, take the punches, get back up, get back up, get back up.
In your career as an entrepreneur, are you finding it's similar challenges that you face all the time, or what's been in your life as an entrepreneur, what's been kind of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome?
There's all kinds of challenges. As an entrepreneur, you're going to face financial challenges, customer challenges, personnel challenges. You're going to face all kinds of challenges. You can't even expect to know what you're going to face, and can't expect to know what you don't know, and you just got to be able to stand back up and keep going. So I always refer to Wile E. Coyote as the ultimate entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because he's relentless, right? He wants to catch that roadrunner, and he comes up with all the brilliant schemes, and it looks like this plan's going to work perfectly, but it never does, right? But he never stops. He keeps going, and he builds another plan, and he keeps going, and he builds another plan. So that's kind of what it takes. It takes the grit, and then it takes certain KPIs. So if I just worked with all the ad agencies, which I went and met with all the ad agencies, they all oh no, we don't want chargers, and if I'd listened to them, I'd say we don't really have a business case. But the reality is, I went ahead, built the entire network, and now all the ad agencies are we want some chargers. I don't have any available right now. We'll talk in next year. But it took not listening to a certain extent to sometimes especially when you're building something that doesn't exist, right? We're building a media channel that did not exist before, and you try to tell someone that this is going to be the best place to advertise ever, and you believe it, but it's hard to convince other people to do that. And by the way, it's very hard to convince people to give you money for something new. So sometimes you have to not listen, be stubborn, but always keep going. As long as what you're measuring, and in this case, what we made sure that the customers, the venues are all happy, and the users are all happy, and then we'll figure out the advertising piece.
What's something you've learned in the process of this company? What's a new thing you've learned that maybe you didn't have to deal with in the past?
Wow. New thing. So most of my businesses have been software, or a derivative of. On a hardware business, they call it hardware for a reason, right? It's it's hard. It's funny how difficult it is to get a product to work, and how difficult it is to make it work in an environment that you're not in any control of, and then and then keep your brand on top as the best. So it's tough. It's tough, but I've faced everything from sabotage from competitions to customers stealing chargers, losing a lot of chargers, things like that you'd be like, why are they taking this? It doesn't work outside of the restaurant. but they take them.
So tell me, we've got we've got an audience of people that I'm assuming a large portion of them people that have ideas they want to pursue. I mean, like you, they want to be an entrepreneur, those sorts of things. Like, what advice can you give to someone?
So, I mean, everyone's going to hear the grit. Make a difference. Do you have a difference that matters? Are you solving a problem? So a lot of people, sometimes the problem is unknown, right? You might be solving a problem that's unknown. That might be the biggest opportunity. But make sure you're always solving a problem. And I think that's where opportunity lies. If you're trying to invent something that's not going to solve a problem, it's not a market, there's no market need, don't waste too much time on that because it's not going to work. A lot of times also people will invent products or solutions that don't scale. They're very close-minded. They're saying, okay, this is a problem in San Francisco. It works great in San Francisco, but by the way, it doesn't work anywhere outside of San Francisco. San Francisco is its own world, right? Yeah. So things can work in San Francisco that don't work anywhere else, just like Miami. Things could work in Miami that don't work anywhere else. So make sure you can, if you are going to build a product that's going to scale outside of your environment, make sure you can do that.
All right, that was a great clip. If you want to watch the full episode, that is episode number 60 with Freddie CD. Coming in at number 4, we have a friend of mine. Her name is Janice Rosario-Schoepp. Now, Janisse is the Vice President of Operations and Strategy at the Health Foundation of South Florida. Now, in this clip, she talks about the importance of public health and how the decisions we make as communities, as governments, affect the people in our communities, especially those in underserved communities. Check out this clip.
What does public health mean?
So public health is really focused on population health. So while the medical field is focused on treating the individuals when they get sick and so forth, public health is really looking at how we can improve the health of the population, of communities, and not necessarily when they're sick. We're trying to prevent them from getting sick. And I think the field itself has evolved over time, where perhaps in the past we were educating people how to eat healthy, you need to exercise, but we know that we can be teaching people these types of healthy behaviors if they live in communities where they can exercise that, right? Because of crime or concerns with safety, because there's no grocery stores to buy healthy foods. And so a lot of the focus really now is around community health and how we can create a built environment that will support a quality of life for its residents.
So much more proactive than
it's a proactive
an individual health approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what are some of the things that you're looking at? So like the grocery store issue is a big one, right? Mm-hmm. But you mentioned like areas where you might not want to go outside and exercise. Is
correct. Yeah. So we have a lot of communities where we see health disparities. And so, we know this. It's like our minority communities, those that are largely Hispanic or African American, we see higher rates of diabetes or hypertension, high cholesterol, and so forth. And yes, it's important to go to your primary care doctor and, get yourself your annual checkup. But they're also in communities that perhaps lack open space, parks, after-school programming. Perhaps they don't have this concept of complete streets where even sidewalks are not part of their neighborhood. Going back to, access to healthy foods, there's no grocery stores, so they depend on the corner stores, which typically have, less or limited access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and just don't have the variety in terms of whole wheat and, low-fat milk, etc. And so we're really looking at the Health Foundation, which is where I've been for the last 14 years, how we can create a culture of health within these communities and change the environment, the policies, and the systems that are in these communities so that people can actually exercise the behaviors that we've been trying to teach them all along, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of specific things, but what's like kind of the biggest factors systematic factors that are affecting people's health right now?
So the big buzzword right now is social and economic factors of health, social determinants of health. And it's said that 40% of whether people have access to jobs, poverty status, education, access to primary care and transportation is what's driving poor health in this country. So that's 40%. That's followed closely by healthy behaviors. So whether people, again, are eating healthy and whatnot, but as I said, it's a result for many individuals of their environment. So there you have 70% already. Genetics you can't do anything about, right? Which is around 10 to 15%. So we're really focused, again, around these community factors. I mean, for the Health Foundation, and I don't know how much you know about foundations overall, but we have been for a very long time focused on, okay, let's increase the quality of the clinical space, right? How services are being provided to individuals, working with hospitals, primary care centers, and so forth. We've been now recently shifting more towards working with community and economic development, which part of that is like our banks, our financial sector, which have Community Reinvestment Act regulations where they have to invest in low to moderate income communities. And so it's like, how do we make sure that the infrastructure investments that are being made by this sector are tied to the health outcomes that we're trying to change?
So what's the biggest challenge that obviously there's large scale challenges and we've talked about a lot of them, but maybe for you personally, what's the biggest challenge that you face in accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish?
Day to day, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that challenges are at two levels, right? So at the foundation itself, we are also changing a culture internally. A lot of what we're talking about here is new, right? We're really moving towards a new way of how we do our business. So traditionally, foundations have always been seen as grant makers, for example. We provide a grant to a nonprofit, see you in 6 months or 12 months, you give me a report. Did you do well? No? Okay, great. Okay, see you later. We don't want to do that. We want to be true co-partners with our partners and co-develop solutions together. So that requires a different skill set internally from staff. It also requires a different culture because now we're moving away from just being a grant maker, but we want to provide technical assistance. We want to be conveners. We want to be more proactive in policy discussions and, just relationships with our elected officials. We want to shape the markets. And what I mean by that is our limited resources can't do the change that we're hoping to do, right? We're dealing with very complex factors that are social in nature, that go back to, structural racism, segregation, all of these things. Very complex. So our money will never move the needle, and that all ties to health, of course. So shaping the markets is basically saying, okay, how do we align with other funders in our community? How can we use our dollars perhaps in a way that can catalyze other investments? So unlocking other capital, private capital that's out there. And so it's like this public-private partnership, right, that we're all kind of, I think will be needed to address the issues that we're talking about. I think that there's a challenge in, compared to the past, and this is something that we discussed extensively at a recent leadership development program that I attended, is that private businesses in the past had a natural interest in their community, right? Manufacturing companies, whatever, they really invested in their local community. But with globalization and everything that's going on, they've kind of left their local community and not so interested in investing, right, in their educational system and so forth. How do we kind of drive that interest back, right? So that not just anchor institutions, which is something else that we're working on, our hospitals, our universities, but also our private businesses that are headquartered here. How can we tap into their interest and commitment to investing in this community to make it a better, thriving place. I think it behooves us if we lose that vision.
All right, that was number 4, Janisse. Amazing clip. If you want to watch the entire episode, she comes in at episode number 34. And of course, you can find it at innovationcity.co. Or if you want to listen on the go, you can find us on anywhere you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow, like, rate, subscribe, review. We value that. It makes a difference. It helps us share this show with more people. Now, next week, we're going to have the number 3 episode of all time. We've got 3 episodes left to share the top 3. It's going to get very exciting. So tune in next week. Thank you for tuning in this week. So we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins. So say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win. We come to fly. This is where we make our dreams.